All right, we are live. We're going to wait about 80 seconds to get going. We're live on Twitter if you want to retweet all the. We getting going here in just a minute. All right, just a few more seconds and then we'll get going. Hey guys, we are live. Welcome to CP Live. I really appreciate you coming in. I've got a really exciting guest. But before we get going, a word from our sponsor. Check out the all-new Cradle Bat Weight from cradlesports.com. This weight is unlike any other weight available as it's designed to be attached to the hands. This unique placement will improve your hand speed, bat head speed, exit velocity, and power, all while creating proper swing mechanics. The Cradle Bat Weight can be used in T-work, front toss, machine work, or even live BP, all while using your own bat. Find even more benefits at cradlesports.com. And when you go to cradlesports.com, use the code CPLive for 15% off your order. Cradle bat weights range from 10 ounces to 40 ounces, so even if your child's very young, you can find the weight to make his or her swing great. Cradle Sports, unleash the power. All right, guys, so I'm going to be joined here by Jordan Dean. Jordan has been a friend of mine for quite some time. He played at Central Michigan, played some pro ball as well, and now he runs Athletes HQ in Elgin, Illinois. Jordan, thanks for being here.
Yeah, thanks for having me, man.
Absolutely. So tell us a little bit about Athletes HQ and, you got done playing and you wanted to give back to the game, so you started Athletes HQ. Talk to me about your facility, your instructors, some of the things you guys teach.
Yeah. I guess the place to start would be when I reached out to you for a job while I was still playing, and you told me that you don't hire current players and that I had to retire first. So I think when I asked you that, I think I ended up playing for another 4 seasons. And during my playing career, I met my business partner, Derek Showman, who actually is going into his second year now with the Minnesota Twins. He'll be the Double-A hitting coach this next season. But we met in 2013 in Indy Ball. That's kind of when you and I met as well, and we can get into that story in a little bit. But throughout it, just exploring, hitting, and we both did lessons on the side in off season, and we kept in contact. I ended up moving to Chicago just on a whim when he got hooked up with a small little travel organization. And then from there, it kind of grew. We were working out of a barn out in the middle of a farm, which, again, I know you can attest to that. That's kind of how your story started, right? So there's that, but then it grew so big that we had to find a new space. And going into my last year, which ended with the Dogs out of Chicago in 2019, the American Association, we signed a lease on a building, and as soon as that season ended, we started building out. So it's been fast, but it's been an ongoing process since 2013. But yeah, now we're up and running. We got 14 travel teams, 2 softball, 12 baseball. Wow. We've got a staff of 10 instructors. A couple are part-time because they have other jobs. And then the other 6 or 7, this is what they do. So it built fast, and, I don't know what the next thing is, but we're always trying to learn. I appreciate you bringing me on. I followed on I think I watched the one with Kurt Hughes a couple weeks ago. So it's cool that you're doing it. Yeah, I remember meeting him up at your place. So another story we can get into, because that was another crazy time in our history. So yeah, that's kind of
you alluded to how we met a few times, right? So, I don't remember how many years ago it was, but I remember Jordan was a young player, still playing professional baseball, but a young player. And I'm watching his Twitter and all the different things he's talking about and tweeting about and showing his swing, doing this, that, and the other, and all the things that were the rage back then. I want to say that tip and rip was really a big one back then, if I can remember. And I don't know if we had ever spoken before or if we had ever DM'd at all or anything, honestly. And I don't know. I had a wild hair and I shot you a DM. What did it say?
Yeah, the direct message you sent me on Twitter was, your swing makes me sad. That's what you said. And I don't think I replied right away. I think I read it a couple times trying to figure out the context behind it. But it got my attention. Yeah, dude, that was the people who are on Twitter now. The hitting Twitter back then was just as wild, if not even more wild, because the information that we have now wasn't even present. So there's a lot of guys just taking guesses at things. And after getting released by the Tigers, I was looking for answers, right? And so all these guys on Twitter, I stumbled upon. I think I originally followed you at first from playing with Casey Judge, who trained with you a little bit, ended up working for you a little bit. So then following you, looking at who you were arguing with, following them. Yeah. And then you've grown since then, by the way.
I'm fatter for sure. Yeah, I get into it every once in a while, but mostly it's when she owners get on me about something they don't understand, which is fine.
Yeah, but no. So like you told me my swing was sad. That piqued my interest. I asked a couple questions, and I think the next day I called you on my drive into work. And then I jumped in the program, and then ended up flying out there or driving out there. No, first time I flew out there for the first time. You invited me to the Masters program that you were running. I don't know if you still run that. It's around this time of the year.
We just had it again. Like Hartford came down. We had guys from a bunch of different schools down as well. It was a fun time.
That event was awesome. But yeah, I think your question, you told me that my swing made you sad. I think because I had like no direction and was just listening to anybody and everybody, and there's absolutely zero process and just constant tinkering, right? And that was one of the cool things. That's one of the cool things with what you guys did when I finally made it out there was the Rebels Rack. And again, we can put a little plug here for your book, the Learn to Turn with the Rebels Rack. Like the process that you put us through in that Masters program in just that 2-3 day span, it like gave you a foundation of things that you can do, knowing that like, okay, this is the process, this is the steps to follow. And these are like building blocks as opposed to looking at little swing tweaks and stuff. It trained. That was the first time I'd ever been introduced to actual movement training. Right. And
yeah, we were really on the forefront of that. Now, a lot of people kind of talk about movement training, but I'm not sure, anybody can pick up a PVC pipe from Home Depot and say they're doing movement training, I guess. Like there's a lot more to it. And I remember what we taught you back then. I mean, obviously we teach it better now, different now. We know a lot more about hinging and side bend and split stance balance and different things that I talk about in the book and tweet about all the time. But the big foundation is the deliberate practice foundation, I think. And just, the randomization has value. But your whole, when I said your swing makes me sad, sorry that I said that, but it did, because I saw you as somebody who obviously really cared about what you were doing, and you were really working to become great at your craft. The problem is you were taking one step to the side and then one step forward and one step back, and next thing you know, you're right back where you started, and you were adding so many things, so many ingredients that the meal tasted terrible. And I was just like, man, this guy seems like a really good dude. He works hard. He's got cool tattoos. I'm going to reach out to this guy, and that's what happened. And we've been friends ever since. Thank you for overlooking my awful Twitter personality occasionally. But I am getting better.
No, that's what I sense, right? And that's part of what we do now. I say we now that I like to think we're colleagues, right? We both own facilities. We work with kids every single day, right? And that's like a staple of what we do. And that's what I sensed in you was like the care for the athlete, right? And that's kind of like we've got 4 pillars at AHQ, right? We've got take care of the kids is number 1. Person first, promote independence, coach and lead them, right? So that's on our board in the office. That's the thing we remember going into these things. And that's something that stood out when you reached out to me is it wasn't just you shooting advice. It was like, that was like an actual emotional like comment, right? That I brought tears to your eyes with the swings that I was taking. But it did. It caught my attention. And again, it got me on the right path as far as like studying things that are applicable. So I got to dive into your guys' stuff, right? And again, going through that process out at Mashers, learning the actual movement pieces and not just hitting and trying to feel it while hitting, but developing those characteristics with no bat, no ball, with deliberate focus and practice so that you don't have to think about it.
Well, the hitting, I mean, like literally today, I had 2 college kids who started training here, live in the area. They, didn't know about us or whatever, which is fine. And they both come in, they do their evals. One guy hits it, 87. One guy, I think they both hit it 87 actually. One's a Division I kid, one's an NAIA kid, and their hard hit average on hit tracks was like 85% at their eval. And so like most people would say like, wow, that's great. They're hitting the ball hard 85% of the time. Well, in reality, it was bad because they're so safe with their swing that they never max out. They never do any damage. It's just a million singles if they get that. And what the younger of the 2 kids, the freshman, I mean, he came in and he was like, yeah, I went to the fall and at these NAI schools, man, these are men. These are 24-year-old dudes on my team, some of them, and I'm 18. And this is a different deal. If I don't swing the bat harder, faster, like I'm not going to get to play. And the other guy, a little different, is a 300 career hitter at a Division I, mid-major Division I. And he hit 8 doubles and 1 home run last year as a second baseman. And he wants to try to play pro ball. I mean, that ain't going to get it done. So just getting them to understand how much faster they can go was only available with the rack because they hit so much, so safely that what they think is fast is actually medium or slow. And they have so much opportunity to get better, but not if you let them hit all the time. If you let them hit, they're just going to do what they always do. And even though they're saying they want to change, you have to give them the tools to actually feel something different and not let them get distracted by, was that a good hit or was that a bad hit? The guy, the Division I kid, at our eval process, you've been through it, you mark your own video. So if you hit a ball you like, you give a thumbs up to the camera. Or back then when you did it was a arm spread. But you marked the video, right? So he hit 8 balls on video, 50 balls total. And the 3 he marked were all lineouts to center field. So he was 0 for 3 and being like, yep, that's what I want to do. And it's just so sad because he had no idea. And, today he hit, he's in the low 90s now. His average velocity is what his max was when he started. And he's only been here 3 days. And I'm just excited for him because he's like, I have a chance to really hit 25 doubles this year now. And I was like, yeah, you do.
Yep.
And that gives you a chance to play at the next level, maybe.
No, exactly.
Well, and that's kind of what your experience was too, right? I mean, when you trained here, you obviously had some bat speed. You're an athletic guy. You get drafted in the 15th round. That doesn't happen as a gift, So you earned that, but your power didn't really translate to the next level until a little bit later in your career. What changed for you?
No, I think it was that, right? Like self-reflecting and going, well, if I want to keep playing, I have to make an adjustment because it was the same thing. Not a lot of home runs, not a lot of extra base hits, trying to advance back. So I got released by the Tigers, right? doing the worst drills you could possibly imagine. I'm not going to put down a MLB organization, but as far as like back then, I just don't think that what I was being taught was good. But me being a super coachable guy was like, well, this has to be the truth. Like I must just not be doing it enough or not doing it well enough. And so I doubled down on really bad drills. So reflecting and being able to say like, all right, what I'm doing is not working. You know what I mean? And then
Right.
trying to figure out what it is, right? Finding people. And that's where we met. I was trying to find someone with the answers. And a lot of it was like what you said, like a lot of it, I had hit so much that I couldn't do something that I've been doing for so long. I had to remove the bat and learning to turn. A big piece for me was barrel entry, right? And figuring out how to create depth deeper in the zone for a better path through the ball. Because as long as I made contact, 28 inches out in front of the plate, then I'd get some loft. But I was steep as a Jeep into the zone. And if I got beat at all, and, pro guys, their balls run in on you a lot more. They're more down in the zone. Nowadays they're pitching up more now with the spin rate. So I might have been okay, but I was just getting beat on everything. So I had to make a serious adjustment, and it goes back to the deliberate practice, but it was learning the movement patterns, right? Like I had to learn how to properly swing up, right? How to get into the zone early, how the torso rotates, right? How to keep my hips back and maintain posture and not let my hips overextend early. All that stuff
Sure.
that takes time without a bat in your hand. And that's why at our facility, right, you'll see these, people ask about them all the time. These red racks, they're laying around everywhere. You can walk in, and if you stick around for an entire day, I guarantee you see those things used periodically throughout the day. Some days more than others, because they work, right? I don't have many things in the facility like gimmicks. We've got things that I've used in my career, and that's something that we do well. I think is we don't experiment on kids, like as far as like drills and stuff. We were the experiment, right? I can firmly, honestly tell you that I've probably done 99% of the stuff that's out there. I've done it, tried it, and I know how it feels and if it worked for me or not. Which is a question I have for you. Like when you see this stuff on Twitter, right? I know you challenge stuff like verbally. Like what's your process when you learn information or see something that I don't know catches your eye, whether you agree with it or not? What's your process in like diving into it and figuring it out? Because I know it's not. Oh, I think I'm going to throw my 3:00 lesson into this drill tomorrow and see what happens, right? Which
that's definitely not how we do it.
No, but there's people out there like that. They see something on Instagram, and next thing you know, every lesson they do that next day is that drill that they just saw on Twitter or Instagram, and those poor kids are paying for it.
And that's the thing. You said it right there. We don't experiment on kids, and they're paying you for your expertise. So, like, I don't feel comfortable implementing anything into a lesson unless it is based in our rules of rotation. And so when I talk about rules of rotation, like there's certain things that healthy human beings know how to do or can do, and you just have to show them how to do it. Right now on Twitter, it's like everybody wants to make everything as hard as possible, and like everybody needs to just fail forward and fail as much as you can. And like I don't know about you, but I don't really like failing a ton. Like I don't enjoy it. It's not fun. And when you're working with youth kids like we're talking about, 14 and under, you can't just hand them a long bat and some strobe glasses and go double machine from an angle and be like, figure it out, Johnny. Like that's not coaching. That's super lazy. And it also divorces the instructor from the failure of the player. They can be like, oh yeah, it was really hard. He just didn't figure it out. We'll try again next week. Like, no, how about you teach something? Teach something. I was on the phone call with a really, really high level Division I coach the other day, and we were talking about. He was like, "Yeah, it's just like failure for failure's sake. Like it doesn't make any sense. It really bothers me. These kids, they come into his program, and yeah, they do some aggressive drills too, because you got to prepare people with hard stuff to do hard stuff. But you're not trying to like ruin everyone's confidence. Like that's a real thing. You have to give a certain amount of success and earn a certain amount of success so that you feel confident and comfortable in games. So most of the stuff that I see on Twitter doesn't follow what I call like a fair task. So for instance, today I had a freshman in high school in my cage, super nice kid, like a rec league quality player who's improved tremendously in our program. But you would never confuse him for somebody who's got a shot to play varsity as a freshman. Okay.
Right.
That being said, he does have a chance to play JV, and I tried a curveball machine for him today. Okay. His first 11 balls he swung and missed. So do I just be quiet and let him figure it out, let him self-organize? Because we'd still be out there and he'd still be missing.
Yep.
Because he wasn't going to self-organize. His self-organization was missing repeatedly, not even being close. And so obviously there had to be an intervention. Me. I walked down there, I talked to him, gave him a dap. I talked to him about bat angle and hinging and keeping his shoulder in like this instead of swinging it really flat at a curveball. I talked to him about swinging where the ball's going to be instead of where he sees the ball. You know, and that made sense to him because I was like, it's like playing catch. You don't like stab at where the ball is at the time. You decide where it's going to go and you let the ball come to your glove. He was like, oh, yeah, that makes sense because I know it's going to drop, so I got to swing under it. I was like, yeah. And then I walked back. And then he broke all his records and he felt great on that same curveball because we gave him a solution that would work because that's what teachers are supposed to do.
Yes.
And I just didn't see that. That's what's frustrating for me. It's the same stuff that I went through with you, 8 years ago or whenever it was. Like you were getting advice from a lot of people who may or may not have been right about you, and you were shoving it all together. Mm-hmm. And I think that's what's happening now. It's like, let's have as many constraints with as little talking as possible, and our hitters are just going to magically figure it out.
Right.
I don't see it.
No, I agree. And that's part of our process too, right? When you're working with a kid, most of the kids that we work with, right? Like they're getting lessons for a reason because they've had some degree of failure, right? And they're trying not to deal with that anymore. They're trying to succeed more, right? So what's the point of throwing them into failure when they're coming to you to help with failure, right? You have to give them confidence early on, right? And confidence starts with either T work or low pitch pressure flips, and then you build from there, right? And you challenge, and then when it finally breaks down, you stop and you go back a step, whatever that step is, right?
Yeah, and you chunk up what broke, and you identify what broke, and then you give solutions inside of that. Say, okay, look, when we went to machine, you lost all your stride directions. Just an example. Well, if you don't then go take the hitting away and take the speed down and say, okay, we have to be able to maintain our stride discipline here, and then slowly ratchet that speed back up so the hitter can feel their stride discipline, then that's how that works. I mean, it's like training wheels on a bike. Like very few people just learn to ride a bike. Like you have to give some kids training wheels. And you're exactly right. What are we taking the money for, Jordan, if we're just going to put balls in a machine and challenge kids and make them fail and make them hate it? Like that isn't coaching. I don't get it.
No, I'm with you. The math teacher across the street who took a stipend job at the JV level can do that. You know what I mean?
But that math teacher probably wouldn't do it. They probably wouldn't do it though. They would probably take the time to try to teach something, whether it's right or wrong. Right? They wouldn't do it. What the guys that are doing it are these fake instructors, who can afford two machines, so they go double barrel machine every freaking day, and they buy some strobe glasses and they think they're cutting edge. When in actuality, they're just having those kids' careers on the razor's edge from getting cut, because that stuff, in the weight room it doesn't happen, in math class it doesn't happen, in parenting it doesn't happen. I've got two kids. I definitely don't chaotically parent, right? My kids get the same dude every day. Like, you're going to be nice to your mother, you're going to be nice to each other, You're going to speak to adults when they speak to you. And if we have an issue in those things, well, we're going to make sure we fix those. You know what I'm saying? And that's how hitting has to work.
Yep. No, 100%. And that's what, and back to it, like, that's what I think the rack does a good job of. It is, it allows a hitter to, right, put themselves through the swing in various movement patterns. You're able to attach resistance, assistance to it, and reinforce whatever movement pattern you're working on. And it just puts the kid in a good spot to where you can mimic the swing and train certain aspects without a bat for that deliberate focus, right? And that's what we use it for. We use it for what we call blending, right? So if I've got a kid who is struggling to go from landing with athletic posture to turning with side bend, right? We'll throw the rack on him, and he'll go through that process, take it off real quick, and hit flips, right? Or hit the tee, and then go back to it. And then once it starts showing up, they use a little less and a little less. You know, as opposed to, you know, and I like it better than a PVC pipe. I like it better than, you know, putting a bat across your elbows and shoulders, right? We've done that, but having the rack just makes it, I think that it puts hitters in a better position to learn certain movements.
Well, it engages your posterior chain, right? Your upper back and your lats, and it gets your scaps back, your shoulders down. Like there's real value in the positions that it puts you in.
There is, because you tell a kid to get into athletic posture, right? And they don't know how to hinge. What do, right? You show them and they do this.
Yep.
They just roll their shoulders. So it forces them to like learn, okay, my upper body's locked in place. I mean, they're either going to squat, which then you can quickly correct, or they'll learn to hinge properly. And that's a big piece right there with younger kids, especially kids who are like underdeveloped muscles.
Oh yeah.
So,
well, with our female athletes, it's really been good too, because they tend to have, you know, a pretty significantly less lat mass than our male counterparts, especially after the males go through puberty. So if you have an especially tall young lady, say 5'10" in the 8th grade, right? Well, all day long, she looks down at her friends. Like that's a thing. And she doesn't have the lat mass of a 14-year-old boy who's got a little bit of scruff. You know what I'm saying? Like it just doesn't exist. That's not how people work. So, you know, getting those young female athletes to get through it as well has been really good. You mentioned you have softball teams. I actually did not know that. Talk to me about how you got into the softball world.
Well, our softball team, our current 17U team, was the first and only travel team we started with. I was never really going to do baseball teams. But from a business standpoint, it made way too much sense to not have our own when we were training 9 different organizations in the area, and then they go out and play. But they trained with us, right? And then you hope that they come back the next year for training.
Sure.
So we started that. But yeah, our first team was a softball team. Their head coach, Jason Cook, dude is just completely bought into us. He met us one time. We put on a 2-hour clinic for them, hitting clinic, back when they were 13U, when they were with a different organization. This was before we even started at HQ.
Yeah.
This is my business partner and I were just training anyone and everyone out of this barn. Met him, did a 2-hour clinic. That was it that year. The next year, he hired us to do a 10-week hitting program. The next year after that, we opened AHQ, and we did like a full-blown like 5-month program. And then he came to us. He's like, can we just play under you guys? Like, why don't you guys just have travel teams? So we started with one with them, and then it grew, and now they're at the 18U level. Most of them are 17U. We have a couple of girls who are 18 seniors, but they all, you know, if they want to, should be in a position to play somewhere collegiately.
That's awesome.
But yeah, it's really cool. Like when you get, I mean, you said it back when I asked you about all your softball girls. Like when you get them to swing a certain way and buy in, like they stand out.
Yeah, they really do. And you know, some of our young female athletes, I mean, they hit the ball so freaking hard. It's outrageous.
Yeah. And if they learn to swing hard, right? If they learn to turn and they learn to swing hard, like their fences never get bigger.
No.
They only get stronger.
Once you can hit it 230 as a female, you should be trying to hit it 230 every time.
Yep.
You know, and, you know, some people would disagree with that. That's fine. You know, if you can if you're a female athlete and you can turn really fast and you can go to a softball camp and hit one over the scoreboard, their own players, some of these colleges can't do that. And
Right.
so like you have a real chance if you throw the ball fast and hit the ball far, you have a real chance to stand out like dramatically. That's something we've actually had a lot of success with here is overhand throwing training for female athletes too.
Yes, that's something that we do as well. I was going to ask you about that. That's something that our throwing guys, like we've got a really large percentage of our like overhand throwing clientele that are softball players.
Well, they don't get taught, they get taught terrible stuff. And I don't really know how that happened. Like, it's a very unique sport in that the ball, even at young age, is bigger than a baseball. And so these girls, they have to throw it with 3 fingers.
Mm-hmm.
And so like there's real advantages to getting them throwing instruction at a young age. I mean, they can stand out the whole time they play.
Yep.
You'd be shocked at how many girls can play shortstop if you just taught them to throw.
Exactly.
That are stuck at second base or stuck in left field. How much of the field you can open up for defensive opportunity for them just because they've got a cannon. I mean, we had a girl in here the other day throw 77 overhand with a softball. I mean, that is freaking cheese.
Yeah.
And it's amazing to watch. We had a girl today. She just started with us. She's been here 3 weeks from her first lesson. So eval doesn't count. So 4 weeks from then first lesson is when we start training things. And I saw her hit, and I was like, man, I know this girl throws bad. She's a real tall girl, 5'11", at 13, strong, good size. Somebody that's like, wow, this girl has an opportunity, but right now she's kind of like a baby giraffe. So we got her in the throwing program, the hitting program. Her average velocity in hitting is up 11 miles an hour, and her max in throwing is up 10 in 3 weeks. And we haven't changed anything. We're just showing her how to use her body. How do you rotate over the top when you throw? How do you rotate under the bottom when you hit? And her dad and her mom are so like, they're stunned. They don't even they can't understand it almost. It's like, well, we've been doing hitting lessons for years and it just didn't do this. I was like, I'm going to tell you, you weren't doing them here, and the daughter's like, well, I haven't even really changed my swing. Like, yeah, I know. You just turn faster inside of your swing. So instead of doing all these uncomfortable, weird drills on a Bosu ball or on a cutting board sliding out from under your foot, instead you can actually do like movements that matter and teach somebody how to rotate and rotate healthily and make sure, especially these young developing athletes, that you're protecting their hip labrums and their lower backs and their knees, especially in girls with acute angle from their hips and stuff, protecting them from these injurious, idiotic guess ideas that are great for social media, but are garbage for hitting. So
no, it is what it is, man. It's like if you learn to turn fast and you learn to move fast, like that's self-organizing, right? That's problem solving, right? Your body doesn't have time to do dumb shit. It doesn't have time to make mistakes when it's trying to be efficient.
Yeah.
And that's what it is. It trains efficiency. So
hold on one second. I did have one more question for you. What do you think was the most important thing that happened when you were as a player? Like, what was like a piece of advice you learned, or like a thing that you realized as a player that really helped you kind of maximize what you're doing? And then conversely, like as you move past playing, how have you kind of built Athletes HQ and come up with those pillars, for instance, to help instill some of these ideals that you have now that probably you could have used more as a player?
It's a good question. So the first one, like as far as like what, like the most, repeat the first question again. What was the most important?
So what was something inside of your career, okay,
Yep.
that was kind of a turning point for you? Kind of unintentional pun there. But like, what was something that, whether it was a conversation on a bus or like a hitting coach that you knew, or a manager you had, or a college coach, or something that happened maybe that like made you realize, oh, wow, okay, I can play pro ball, or wow, this isn't working in pro ball. Pro ball is harder than I thought. I need to do this. Or what's something that kind of catapulted you to realize, okay, I have to do something, I have to do X to get where I want to go. And then once you were done playing pro ball, you came up with the pillars at Athletes HQ. And is that something that you came up with to try, like based off of your own failure? Because we all fail eventually in baseball. Baseball tells us all to go away, even Barry Bonds. Well, like, how did you overcome, or how did you do those pillars to make sure that other people really avoided some of the pitfalls you had?
Yeah. So two specific examples. One was getting released by the Tigers.
That's hard.
My dream to play pro ball. It happened. Got drafted, in a good round after my junior year. Got a little signing bonus. Felt really good, and got thrown in the fire with no preparation. Like, no one gave me any advice going into it as far as like what to expect. I came from like a small town in Michigan. I graduated with 100 kids in my class, right? So it wasn't like a powerhouse pumping out prospects that played at the pro level. This is very rare. So I just didn't have anyone around me to tell me what it was going to be like. So I wasn't prepared. And so getting released, right, coming to grips with that, and then searching for answers. That was a big, big time. And that's what led me to meet you and also learn the swing and not just be an athlete. And then the second time was after finally feeling like, I'd been working and talking and like working through things with you guys and myself and my business partner on ideas, feeling like I was in a really, really, really good spot. Like I could do what I wanted on flips or a machine, and then learning to translate that to a game. And that's where my hitting coach in 2017, Austin Gallagher, who now he's over in Australia now, but Austin was a high school draft pick to the Dodgers. And if anyone knows anything about the Dodgers, they do a phenomenal job with producing young talent and young talented hitters. He taught me about approach, which I could go on a whole nother tangent about approach because coaches constantly preach it, but they don't give you one. He taught me an approach that I bought into and learned what it means to buy into an approach and what a real approach is and not just guess hitting. And I went from the most home runs I'd hit professionally, which had been 5. I had the tools to, because I could hit the ball plenty hard enough, but it was about maximizing swings. Went from hitting 5 to hitting 18 that year and finished like in the top 3 in that independent league. And then followed that up with 15, my final year. Right. So those were the 2 pivotal moments as far as a player goes. And then how we came up with these pillars, right? When we're working with these kids, my business partner and I, we talk all the time about like, there's all these ideas, right? Let's keep in mind like these things so that, pretend that they're us, like at any point in their careers, 9U, 12U, 15U, 16U, 22U, whatever it is, they're looking for answers, and it's our job to give them qualified answers. And when we're working with them, whether it's an 8U kid who just literally needs to be able to play in the backyard with his brother and dad so he's not embarrassed, or it's a 23-year-old in his senior year of college trying to get picked up by an independent team, right?
Right.
Whatever that kid's next step is, they're coming to us and trusting us, and that's where we have to, if just like when I was searching Twitter, looking for someone who cared and not just someone who is spewing ideas, right? Or someone who would have me come hit with them and just post it just for their own social media brand, which happens a ton now. These kids are getting asked to hit with these guys, and it's just so that these guys can look like they're hitting with all these big time people or these big time prospects. So that's the whole idea, right? Take care of the kids, promote independence, person first, coach them and lead them. Like that's just kind of like something we keep in mind with everything we do in lessons and inside of our travel organization. And it starts with that.
Well, I love that you talk about answers. These people are paying us for our expertise. That doesn't mean we know everything all the time.
Right.
That's not at all what Jordan and I are trying to say. But what we are saying is if we feel qualified enough to take money for a service, we're going to make sure that we give you the best information we have at that moment in time. We're not going to try to pretend like the other thing on Twitter I see all the time is just like everyone wants to be the dumbest person in the room. Like, I don't want to be that person. Like, I want to listen and learn from people, but I also like am okay with saying like, ugh, I don't think that drill's very good, or like, man, that doesn't match any type of rules of rotation. Like we just have to be a little bit more accountable as instructors, in my opinion. And it's funny, a lot of these instructors and coaches, college coaches, whatever, they talk about accountability and toughness and all these different things. And then you ask them a question on Twitter and they tuck tail and run. And then they're like, well, they don't want to justify anything that they're doing. They just want you to blindly take it. And I don't get it. I mean, I want people to engage with me and ask me questions and make me and challenge me if they think I'm wrong. That's completely fine. Like you mentioned Casey. I wrote an article recently, a long time ago, sorry, about being really tall and not hinging. Okay. That's still on my website. I was wrong. And I stood right next to Casey. We left that up. We put a disclaimer at the top. We don't teach this anymore. We teach this now. Click here for more information. But we left it there because I think like erasing your mistakes is so weird. Mm-hmm. Like own it. We ask our kids all the time, fail forward. Don't be afraid to mess up. Let's make this super hard so you can grow. Like, you think it was easy for me to stand there and let some young kid who worked for me, who's 10 years younger than me, talk about how dumb I was on video? No, It wasn't easy. And it wasn't fun. But it was the right thing to do because I was wrong. It's okay. Now, what's not okay is just knowing that you're guessing and taking money for it. That's not cool.
Right.
And
because what you probably saw in that article, right? I think I remember reading it, right? You wrote it when you first wrote it. It was because, it was an adjustment that some hitters had made and they'd seen some success, and at the time, right, and it worked. It wasn't anything like I read this somewhere or I think this is it, right? There was some education behind it.
Right. I mean, I did have one hitter. I mean, he had 6 jacks in a weekend doing it. Okay, well, that was obviously a great adjustment for him. Mm-hmm. But I wrote the article in such a way that was incorrect, that everybody should be tall and everybody should, not have a big hip hinge. And I don't even think I said hip hinge at the time. It was something like stand tall to hit the low ball or something. I was like, it was just looking back, it was just really, really wrong. But it worked for that kid, so whatever. But you got to own it. You got to move forward.
So I had one question real quick before you wrap it up. I wanted to. I don't know if you ever went over this. Was speaking of instructors online, right, and tuck and tail and running, you had an opportunity at a big league game to meet a fella in jeans and a braided belt.
Yes.
Who a lot of people know. What was that like? Teacher man.
So the teacher man, I've actually known him for like 12 years. And in my book, I actually talk about meeting him and how watching him teach, and a guy named Jeff Edwards, who goes by Swing Builder on Twitter, watching those two guys teach, listening to what they said, getting on their website at the time, and looking at swings differently. Now, I did not agree with their explanations, and I still don't, but I will say that the things that they were seeing and telling me inside of a swing, I had never had anybody point out to me before. Not through all my years at NC State or my years in high-level summer ball or years at UNC Asheville or any of the hitting stuff I had seen or read or thought I knew. It was definitely different and was definitely interesting. And some of it was definitely like obviously different than what I was telling my kids. And so I ran towards that. I spent time on their side. I asked a bunch of questions, and, they lambasted me every once in a while on Twitter, chirp at me this way, that way, whatever. I really don't care. But the bottom line is this: it made me look at something differently. And meeting Richard at the first time when I was 25-ish, was valuable to me, not as a hitter and not as a coach, meaning like I'm teaching, that stuff, but it was valuable in that I saw stuff I didn't see, and it helped me get a better swing plane understanding at a young age in a barn. It drove me to buy a laptop and get a flip camera because camera phones didn't exist yet. And it drove me to really do a lot of video study and come up with, the movements that matter that we talk about now and our rotational skill training that we talk about now. So, you asked about the game. The game was fine. He was nice. I bought him a beer. We sat in the Clevelander in Miami. He was there to see Scott Kingery, and I was there to see Derek Dietrich. Funny story. Aaron Judge was batting, and he got a notification on his phone, so he pulls his phone up, and we watch him hit, right? And Aaron Judge strikes out, and he said, he did it wrong. Like, I was like, dude, what are you talking about? Like, I'll never forget it. He did it wrong. He didn't do it right.
That's funny.
I just can't imagine saying that about it.
Right.
Like, if you have Twitter at all, I work with Ryan Mountcastle relatively closely. He's on the cover of my book, like he does rotational skill training. What do you want me to do? What the hell am I going to tell Ryan Mountcastle about hitting in the big leagues?
Right.
Nothing. He hit 33 jacks as a 23-year-old. I got nothing to tell him. Nothing. What I'm going to tell him is, hey, man, here's how you can stay healthy. Here's how you can keep yourself limber. Here's how you can make sure that you don't lose your rotational speed over time, because the season is a grind.
Mm-hmm.
The season is long. You have to find a way to be efficient in this game, whether it's hitting in softball or hitting in baseball. You only have so many swings you can take, and those swings are generally stressful. I mean, you are a player. 0 for 4 feels like the worst, and 4 for 4 feels like the best. And I don't care how disciplined you are about your rotational skill. Going 0 for 4 a couple times on a weekend is awful.
Oh, yeah.
And you want to hit till your hands bleed, and you can't sleep, and all this different stuff. What I try to give is these guys and girls that train with me is clarity. So they can look at their swings on video and be like, yikes, my load was terrible. I didn't watch the ball. I didn't turn fast. I didn't have posture discipline. I didn't rotate well through side bend. Not all the million things you could have done wrong in one swing. You can look at a few things. And then mechanically, if you're sound, if your turn is sound, then you just say, okay, was I early? Was I late? Was I under? Was I over? And if you don't make those adjustments in real time fast, you're going to struggle that game. But you have an opportunity to then evaluate the mechanical stuff, make sure that it was where you want to be. And then from there, you have a chance to kind of make a positive change. Jordan, we did have a question real quick from Caleb Dahlman before I kind of go back to a little more teacher man story. He was asking about how we train these ladies in throwing. And I'm not a throwing guy, Caleb, so you know that. You've been a long time customer of Baseball Rebellion, so thank you very much. That being said, the stuff that girls are taught in hitting and pitching, or hitting and throwing, overhand throwing specifically, is really problematic. And a lot of these girls are told you can't swing hard, you can't hit for power, you can't throw hard. Like, you're literally not capable. And like, I can't imagine somebody saying that to my wife, who's a Division I volleyball player, or my sister-in-law, who's a Division I soccer player. And I have 2 little boys, so I don't have to deal with it. But I do deal with it with my athletes. And they're like, well, my coach says I swing too hard. Like, I don't even know what to say to that. Your coach also starts you on varsity as a freshman. Like, what do you want me to tell you? Like, the lineup tells you, so like, you can't be both. You can't hit third on varsity as a freshman and your swing sucks. So like, I don't know. So, the lineup card tends to tell the story. But, Caleb, the thing that I think that we do the best at Softball Rebellion, Baseball Rebellion, is we just let them maximize their gift, whatever it is. We don't force them to do drills that are like 30 years old and rooted in mechanics that may or may not matter. It's rooted in movement, speed, rotational skill, balance, direction, stability. And I'm not talking about weightlifting. I'm talking about how they think about throwing and how they prepare their bodies to unleash. And, that's what we do here. And I know it's very general because, again, I'm not a throwing guy. But I do know I see those young ladies moving extremely athletically in my cage. And then when I get them to go through their throwing program too, and they realize that that's also a massive market inefficiency for them and they can get much better, that's when we really see everything come together as an athlete. What do you think, Jordan?
Yeah, no, spot on. Our girls, it's the same thing. They come in and they're very robotic. like their throwing techniques, because at a young age, I feel like that was what their coaches thought would make them throw accurately, right? We always hear like that the field is smaller, be accurate, don't overthrow your target, stuff like that, right? So it's verbiage that they've heard from a young age that puts these like mental parameters on them, and that's something our throwing guys. I'm just like you. I don't know the ins and outs of it. I don't pretend to. That's why I've got 4 of the best throwing guys in the region, in my opinion, on teaching overhand throwing. They just develop athletic movements and efficient movements through various movement drills, right? It's nothing crazy, right? It's a lot of like, they use a lot of med ball stuff. They do a lot of mobility. A lot of times these girls, they'll go to do a pull down or a run and throw step behind, and they don't even know how to counter rotate their upper body at all. And their chest just stays square, and it's just all arm, right? So that's just an example, but it's just teaching them. And like you said, allowing them to understand like, hey, it's okay to like move freely and not think about every little step you're taking.
And just chuck it every once in a while. I had a girl come in the other day. She had no layback. She was like she threw like this. It was like at no point did this ever occur. Like, and it was just because she's been told over and over and over, like accuracy. Right. Like, just let your other girl catch it. Like, yeah, like I understand you got to throw and catch in the games, but you also have to develop the ability to generate force. And these young ladies really get hamstrung. And I hate to say it, a lot of them are getting told they can't do stuff by other females.
Yep.
And it's just like, geez, what are we doing? Like I'm not down with that. So I am 100%. I love softball. It's my favorite thing to coach, actually.
Yep. That was why we didn't want any baseball teams. I loved working with our softball team so much. I was like,
listen, the girls that play at the ages we're talking about, like they're trying to play in college. They're not. This isn't just another activity for them, like half the boys. This is something that they genuinely care about. It's something I genuinely care about, and I know at Athletes HQ and at Baseball Rebellion and Softball Rebellion, we're going to continue to elevate these young ladies' opportunity. Jordan, I really appreciate you coming on with us today. One more thing really quick. I want to thank Credo Batweight one more time. We actually have this. This is the Batweight, how it looks. We actually have been using it as a split grip drill here. So that's actually a really cool feature they can do. You can move it up, you can move down. I guess about as high as it can go is about right here. It's got these really cool like screw knobs that really hold it in place. And it allows the pressure of the weight to really keep it there. So it's not going to slide around. It's not going to come off. I've really enjoyed it. And I know that Luke and Eric have been using them for a few days now. And they really like the way that they can move it up and down and change that moment of inertia for our hitters. So I want to thank them again. Once again, credosports.com, code CP Live for 15% off. Credo Sports, unleash the power. So Jordan, thanks again for being here. Athletes HQ is an awesome place near Chicago. If you're in the Midwest and you're looking for somebody to go to, I can't say enough great stuff about Jordan Dean, because the best thing about Jordan Dean is I know for a fact that if he doesn't have an answer for you, he's going to reach out to somebody who might, and he's going to push himself to become better every day, not in a fake way, but in a real way. And he's going to give you the answers that you deserve for your money and your kids. Jordan, thanks again.
Awesome. Chaz, I appreciate the plug there, man. It's always fun talking to you. We'll have to do it again sometime.
Absolutely. We'll talk soon, buddy. Thanks for everybody for watching.